Walker here with retirementhomes.com. Welcome to our December webinar, 10 Senior Living Resolutions for 2015, Higher Occupancy and More. So again, this is our last session for the year, so if this is your first time joining us, obviously a big welcome. If you're a veteran here, obviously a welcome as well. So this is going to be really a bit of a recap on best practices, if you will, a lot of things that you're probably familiar with, but perhaps they've fallen by the wayside. A lot of things which perhaps may be new to you. Again, depends on your role. Some people here may be frontline salespeople or lifestyle consultants in a senior living community. I see we have some marketing managers here, some marketing directors. So there's a bit of a variety here. Some people are more on the front line dealing with families, consulting in that respect. Other people are a bit more on the top-down sort of strategy. But I'm sure that we can walk through, and there's something for everyone here. So a little bit about us. Again, if you're not familiar with retirementhomes.com, we're the world's most comprehensive online cloud-based senior living directory. We do senior living marketing. We're a resource for both baby boomers and for the seniors themselves. Of course, we do sales training for marketing, senior living professionals. We do audits of different senior living communities and so on. And really, we're a resource both for the people who are looking for the homes as well as the people who manage, own, and sell the homes as well. So what we're going to do is go through, again, 10 resolutions for the new year. Now, there are a few assumptions based behind that. And I'll talk a little bit about that and why such resolutions are needed, why such particular viewpoint is required, and sort of where we're coming from. Obviously, New Year's resolutions are never a bad thing. Never a bad thing to look at your output, look at your efforts, and so on and so forth. But what this really is about identifying a few assumptions and really how they have determined the direction of senior living and how we think it's going to happen moving forward. So first and foremost, of course, you're familiar with that, more competition. Now, again, more choices. So this depends on the type of options that you're offering here. If you are an Alzheimer's or memory care facility, I hate the term facility, but there you go, just sort of comes off the tongue more easily. If you're memory care home, the options might be home care, might be a nursing home. If you're independent living or active living, again, the competition might be, places in Scottsdale, Arizona, or Florida. Might be the Villages, a place like that in Florida, 50,000 seniors in that kind of an environment. So it really depends on, obviously, the type of home or a type of environment that you have. If you're a golf community, your competition is going to be very different, of course, than assisted living. Of course, as well, the second point here, internet-savvy boomer and seniors. Again, depending on the type of care. If we're talking about memory care, assisted living, it's probably the oldest child. Independent living, active living, obviously more likely to be the senior themselves. Again, they're more knowledgeable, so they're not just going to accept a sales pitch. They're not just going to accept that this is an option they have to take. They know they're informed. They know there are other options, and most importantly, they feel empowered. And that's something which we don't again have to be afraid of, and we'll get into a little bit about that. But it's something that when you have more knowledge, you feel more empowered. It can be intimidating for sales and marketing professionals because we feel like we're on the ropes, we're on the defensive. But it's an important thing to know about. Changing demographics. Now, again, we've talked about that in past webinars, but that ultimately, for all this talk about baby boomers, again, the oldest boomer was born in 1946. That makes them 68 years old now. The average age for a senior moving into assisted living is 87. So there's a bit of a gap there between, quite a large gap, between the oldest boomers who are, we have some boomers, who might be in memory care or assisted living, even retirement communities. But for the most part, there's about a 15 to 20-year gap between this huge bulge, sort of like this, snake moving down the body, or a pig moving down the body of a snake. So it's moving down, but it's not going to be there yet. So this huge, deluge, glut of baby boomers aren't quite there yet. So at this point, that's why it seems like the demographics aren't quite playing in our favor. We're still playing catch-up. So in that respect, it's something that does not work yet in our favor. It's still working, if you will. It's at odds. And of course, we have technology providing options. Again, tying into the first 2 points there, we're dealing with a population in general, but as seniors especially, they're more technologically savvy. They're able to go on Yelp. They're able to go on Google. They're able to look up reviews. They're able to go on Facebook and ask their friends. And that means that they are no longer, again, their only resource is not a sales professional or a sales consultant, or or perhaps what they've read in sales collateral or material. They're able to see what other people have said about it as well. So obviously that's a double-edged sword, but it means here is that this is why we have to be on our game, and this is why that we have to look at best practices, and sort of what's worked in the past won't necessarily work in future. Okay, so resolution number 1. I'd like to have the class read this aloud. So I will identify who my perfect prospect is, and I will strive to specifically target them. So what do I mean by that? I touched on that a little bit earlier in terms of when I ask, okay, you are memory care. Who is your prospect? The residents may be in their late 80s. They may be predominantly women. They may be, whatever your profile is. And again, even if you don't have a specific profile there, ultimately you're not selling to that person, right? You are selling to, well, who on average is going to be the oldest daughter. Now, many of you are probably nodding your heads. You may know of this, but again, in your community, who is the demographic? Where are they coming from? What is their age? What is their income levels? A lot of this may be known to you. You may have, again, particularly if you're part of a larger chain, a lot of this might be systematized and you might have at your fingertips. If you're smaller, perhaps a standalone home, you might not have that data. But again, conduct an audit, if you will. Look at your pipeline. Look at your past sales. Look at your current residents. Think of the family, and account management and so on, and consider, okay, who are my prospects? Who are my current clients, and trying to go from there. And again, so that's the most important thing, is identifying that. Obviously, if we're not doing that, then we're not able to really target with extreme accuracy, because otherwise we're casting a wide net, which might sound great, but again, when we're talking about that's sweat equity. You're taking your time calling people who aren't accurate, your best prospects. You're spending time and money on advertising, whether it's digital advertising, Google AdWords, and newspaper, radio ads, whatever it is. You're not going after the right people. Let me give an example here. Let's say you are an upscale independent living community in an urban location. Let's say you're a golf resort in Scottsdale, in an active living community in Boca Raton, Florida. Let's say you're in an $8,000 a month memory care facility. Again, there's an economic reality there. So understanding who your prospect is not only knowing that you need to go after this age and this gender and this life experience. You need to be talking about income levels as well. So that's just, again, it will encompass everything that you do, from your sales process to your marketing to your follow-up to everything. But again, it's something that you need to keep in mind. And if you don't know that, again, spend time now. Spend time over. If you have time off in the next couple weeks, just thinking about who these people are and writing it down. It will help you be better at your job. And again, in terms of how to do that, we'll touch on that a little bit further on. But in terms of this will impact, if you're coming from a marketing perspective, what kind of content is on your website? What kind of content are on your social media channel? What kind of social media channels do you have? Are you on Facebook versus Twitter versus Instagram? Again, it depends on the type of prospect or clients that you're dealing with. Facebook is probably a better bet. Twitter probably less, and so on. Depends on the type of SEO, search engine optimization. What terms, again, coming from a marketing perspective, what terms are you optimized for? Are you going for assisted living, Miami, or you're going for active living, Minneapolis, and so on? Again, that needs to color, understanding who your prospect is needs to color everything that you're doing. And again, from a sales perspective, again, you need to know everything from most basic. If that's who my prospect is, how do I decorate the office? What's the sales protocol? Someone comes in, if this is upscale, are you giving them tea, coffee, espresso? Are you really giving them the white glove treatment? Again, it depends. If you're talking a little bit more of an urgent sort of a nursing home, CCRC kind of an atmosphere, how do you make it very comfortable, very warm, very disarming, so someone doesn't feel like they have to battle the guilt of putting their parent in a home? So again, it really should color everything from both marketing and sales in terms of understanding who your prospect is. So we have here resolution number 2. I will find out where every single prospect heard of us, and I will identify the source or sources of the best prospects. Now, again, depending on the type of community you're at, if it's a larger chain, some larger chains, 90% of the prospects come from a corporate website, and then that's fed down from there. And again, obviously that data, depending on the type of chain and the type of data they collect, should be there. So obviously, customize this as it fits your particular circumstances. But in this kind of a case, it's not necessarily enough to simply ask, where did you hear about us? Because, again, I've spoken to sales professionals, and they've told me, I asked someone where they heard about us, and they cited a newspaper where they saw our ad, but we've never put an ad in that newspaper. So asking the prospect is only as good as the prospect themselves. Now, obviously, that should be asked all the time if it's already known. Certainly, in imperfect data, sometimes can help lead you to the correct data if you know how to interpret it. So that always should be asked. But again, from a marketing perspective, for example, are there landing pages on your website? So, for example, are there plenty of opportunities where they want to find out information about you? They can fill out their data right on the website on different pages. They click submit, and that goes right to the salesperson or the lifestyle consultant or whoever it is. So from that perspective, you don't necessarily need them to answer it. You'll be able to know for them. And I included here just a brief screenshot. Again, that's Google Analytics. Many of you may be familiar with that. That's from retirementhomes.com. It's from, actually, you may recall, I actually used this as part of a presentation webinar we did back in October. But again, this is the kind of data that is your best friend. It shows you where people are coming from, what they're doing on your website, how long they're spending there, what search terms they're using to find you. So all of that data and more is there. And again, from a marketing perspective, it's really a cornucopia of data, and this really helps you. If you know people are finding you using particular search terms, it's those search terms that perhaps you need to be expanding. Again, not just from a marketing perspective. This relies back into frontline sales as well. When you understand how people, generally speaking, what they're looking for on your website, what kind of search terms, and so on and so forth, it means that you have a much better picture of your prospect. And what that means is that then, when you meet them and you speak with them, again, this is an idea of who you're talking to, and it gives you a bit of an idea in terms of how to target not just your sales pitch, your sales collateral, your marketing programs, your follow-up, everything really from beginning to end. So again, tools like Google Analytics and really online marketing in general, it allows a much better opportunity to track and evaluate and really identify the return on investment of different efforts as well. And of course, this leads into everyone's least favorite resolution, but it's resolution 3. I will consistently and accurately use my company's CRM system or use my own, again, consumer or customer relationship management. So some communities, particularly larger ones, you might have a personalized one. You might use Salesforce. Perhaps in a smaller community where you might be a 1 or 2 person marketing and sales team all rolled into one, you might be doing your own combination of Google Calendar and Microsoft Excel. But really what this is that it's very important to remain consistent. Now again, when I put that "or" there, obviously it's ideal if there's a company-wide CRM system. I've spoken to sales managers, and they've told us, what, it's really great that our salespeople, our lifestyle consultants, that they have a personal relationship with their prospects. But what that means is that if that prospect, or rather if that salesperson leaves, or if, who knows, anything can happen, a lot of that information is stuck in their head. It's in their brain. A lot of information they have about that prospect who might be very close to a sale. There might be a source or referral for other source for sales. If a lot of that information is inside the head of the salesperson, that's only as good as that salesperson. As soon as they leave, you leave that with them. Particularly if it's an acrimonious split, then you're really, you have the carpet pulled from underneath you. So you're really at a weakness there from a management perspective if you haven't gotten on not just a CRM, allowing staff to have whatever works for them. Again, we've talked to salespeople or sales managers, and they've said, we have all of our salespeople. They do what works for them. It all works, and that's great. It's great that it's working for them, but unfortunately, it's not working well for management, not in the long term. So there needs to be a streamlined perspective there, and then there needs to be constant training, professional development, continuing education, things like that. And again, it needs to be consistent for salespeople and people who are on the front line as well. Make sure that you're updating it at least daily. Make sure that you're using your CRM system to analyze your pipeline weekly. Make sure to track feedback through there. So again, there's a real temptation when there's a prospect, it's a qualified lead, is moving through the pipeline, and then for whatever reason, it's a lead or a prospect that's been cultivated for a while, and for whatever reason, it's not a move-in. Maybe the prospect, anything from they've simply decided to move elsewhere. They lost all their money in a stock market crash. Maybe they've passed away. Maybe they've just decided to stay at home or move somewhere else. Whatever the reason is, if for whatever reason there's a prospect who's being cultivated, it doesn't end up being converted, there's a real tendency, or at least a temptation, to simply, what's the point? If the person's died, why should I update my CRM? This person's not going to come back. But again, the idea, there's two sides of the coin here. Again, it's not just about that one particular prospect. It's about A, protocol, and again, B, it's about best practices, and of course, even more fundamental than that, it's about identifying trends. And if you can see that, for example, if you've lost 20 prospects in the last year, that might be statistically a very good number, but understanding where these people are going, what the reasons for doing so are, and again, that's why it's, you can't simply let go, even when it's very tempting to do so. Resolution number 4, again, I had, end of year, December, having a little bit of fun, so you'll see some memes in the next few pages. You might remember that from a fellow there from an Old Spice commercial. So the resolution 4, I will identify and measure my cost per lead. Again, we have him holding diamonds there. Your leads are now diamonds. So we need to be treating all of our leads as incredibly valuable. Again, it's important to qualify it, necessary to qualify all leads or all prospects that come in to make sure that they become qualified leads. But really, everything is valuable because even an example, most basic, depending on the type of protocol, type of community, type of care, income levels, everything like that, if someone comes into, let's say, let's give an example. You run a CCRC or you're in charge of sales in a nursing home, and someone comes into your home and they've misunderstood. They think that you are independent living or active living. You're a new building and you look very nice. They come in and they totally misunderstand, or maybe just financially it really isn't going to work. So what are you going to do with that lead? Can you resell that lead? Can you give that to another community or someone who can potentially give a bit of a quid pro quo later on? In other words, you give them something maybe in 3 months' time when they're at an independent living community and they have a resident who's just really shouldn't be there anymore. They might be able to call you and say, "Hi, Jim. I have someone who we can't accommodate but might be perfect for you." So again, this opportunity, first and foremost, to categorize and track and have up-to-date contact information for all of your leads. Again, even those leads who you don't think are relevant anymore, even somebody who may have died, it's important to have all that information because you never know when that data will come in handy. And so again, knowing your cost per lead, just on a most fundamental basis, what that means is taking all relevant, again, depends on, this caveat, what type of community, what your model is, your financial model, but really it's all relevant sales, marketing, expenses divided by leads is the cost per lead. And again, all expenses, relevant expenses divided by move-in, that's the cost per move-in. So you need to ask yourself, not just cost per lead, what's my conversion rate? What's not just the cost per lead, what's the cost per move-in? Are costs fluctuating? Was a cost per lead now versus a year ago more expensive, less expensive, cost per move-in, more expensive, less expensive? Why? Again, these questions need to be known, and that's why it's long-term. It's not just now. Take a look a year ago. What were they then? Take a look 6 months ago, and in a year's time you'll be able to look at it as well. This is why treating all this data is very important. Data is your best friend. The more of it you have, the more you'll be able to sell better and market better to your prospects as well. And again, not just when you know that, if you've seen that, let's say they have increased, you can identify, and it could be a springboard for asking, okay, why is it increasing? Or perhaps how can we reduce it, and so on and so forth. So again, having that information about knowing the cost per lead and then the cost per move-in can be very valuable from a marketing perspective in terms of targeting specifically. Because if you're spending all your money and you're not getting good returns in newspaper ads in your local newspaper, but you're getting great returns on Google ads, it's important to look at your cost per lead move-in, because if they've been reduced in the last couple of years because you've been putting less money into traditional advertising or whatever it is, then obviously that's going to reflect very well, and you want to continue, but you want to identify why it's happening so you can keep doing it. So we have resolution 5 here, and again, there's people don't know who that is. That's Dwight Schrute from the hit comedy The Office, and he's saying, "Hi, I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my sales pitch. So buy it, maybe." And again, that's a takeoff of a popular song as well. And so again, this resolution is, I will consistently use the consultative sales approach with prospects. So again, what I'm playfully mocking with Dwight here is that, again, the sales pitch, in terms of, he was, for those of you who don't know the show, he was a paper salesman who used a bit of unorthodox methods, but he was very successful at what he did. So this is, again, the old style, and again, I suspect that many of you are familiar with even the term consultative sales selling, question-based selling, whatever it is. It's a type of selling where, ultimately you're not just, to be sort of crude, vomiting out information and sort of hoping whatever sticks. So again, it's not just about sales pitch. We're not, snake oil salesmen. You're certainly not people who are trying to pull a quick one, because again, we're talking about people and their loved ones. We're talking about senior living here. We're not talking about even a widget that, maybe you can, sleep well at night. This is something intensely personal. So when we talk about that, it's very important to follow a structured process for a number of different reasons. And again, there's not one, I would be remiss if I were to claim that there's one constant sales protocol that everyone must run. There are elements that are central to a consultative or question-based selling, but there's not one. Again, depends on the type of industry, and this is why everything has to be specific. But really what it means is following a process where you're going to be doing a number of things. So you're going to be most fundamentally building rapport. So again, when you're dealing with or meeting with prospects, it's important to, again, write this down, have it on a piece of paper. Don't necessarily leave it for, someone, if a prospect comes to meet you with you, but when you do a tour, go over it for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Again, you build rapport with the person. You chat with them for a couple of minutes. Ask them questions. Share stories. Talk about, your family. Have a picture of your family. Whatever it is, again, use that opportunity to do that. Needs analysis. Again, this is the most important. If you were to, if I'm a prospect, I walk in, you have an independent living community. I walk in off the street. I say I'm looking for a tour. You start giving me a long-winded sales pitch about how beautiful the building is and about, how gorgeous the chandeliers and just the physical, beautiful building and then the dining room and the fireplace. And I say to you, I'm really not interested. Why? Because it might be that I've perceived that place just by looking at it. So much emphasis on the building, and I think, it's probably too expensive. Or, oh, geez, my mother, my father, whatever it is, they're legally blind. They're not going to see. They're not going to care. So, again, there's that kind of needs analysis, which is, again, a fundamental. So it means asking questions, asking, what type of care they're looking for, what prompted them to come in, why they're looking now, what they don't like about their current situation. Again, a lot of this must be customized. Again, if you're selling a car versus selling, a $10,000 a month gated golf community in Arizona, they're very unique and they need to be tailored. But it means asking questions, asking appropriate questions. And of course, there's listening. There's acknowledging what they're saying. It's not just an exercise to do it to make the person feel good that, hey, this nice salesperson is listening to me. No, it's understanding why, because it helps you understand their motive. Why are they buying? Why did they come in on a snowy day? Why did they come in on a busy afternoon? Why did they make the big trek, for whatever reason it is, out and then say, you know what, I'm not ready right now? They are ready, and there's a reason for it. There's a reason they come out. And again, that's why understanding that buying motive is so vital, because if we haven't done that, we haven't lit the fire underneath them and really encouraged them to move forward in their process. So again, those are fundamental parts of it. It needs to be acknowledged. You need to understand. I understand that you're not happy right now. If you could find an environment where your mother or father had this, is that something you would be looking for? And again, so on and so forth. These aren't tricks. These aren't tips. Again, it's a protocol. It's a strategy where just at its most fundamental core, you are asking people what they need, and then you're selling to that. Just at its core, that's what it is. You're not selling to what you think they need. You're not selling to what the last person who had a tour or the next person who had a tour. You're selling to exactly what they need. And it's not because you're guessing it. it's because they're telling you so. And again, how do you develop these kind of active listening skills? You're taking notes. Ask them, can I take a note? Again, they might be taken aback, but they say, well, sure. I mean, they want to know that you're not just waiting for them to shut up before you're starting with your sales pitch. You are more interested in what they have to say than what you're interested in yourself. You're encouraging them to speak. What do you mean by that, and so on. You're paraphrasing afterwards. You're asking for feedback. Am I correct in understanding this? You're expressing empathy and sympathy and all of that. So it's very important to, again, move through that protocol. There are different types of questions. You want to ask probing questions. What, excuse me, what do you mean by that? Information gathering questions. What aren't you happy with right now? Confirmation. Do you see a place that offers, daily ski trips in the winter or whatever to be of interest? You want to ask questions that confirms, the overall. Jane, you told me that, your mother has trouble going to the bathroom. Would you consider it helpful if there was a call bell in her bedroom so she could use, and so on and so forth? So again, these are just the general points that need to be taken into account for salespeople. And again, a lot of that you may be familiar with, but the important thing, if I can leave you with one thing from this resolution, because potentially it is one of the most fundamental, it's that you need to understand, we need to understand what they want before we can sell. And again, it's having that protocol and following it every time. So if it means when I walk in, or even every morning if there's walk-ins, reading through it every 5 minutes, reading through it 5 minutes before a tour comes in, has the potential to make a big difference there. And again, here we have another meme there with Willy Wonka. The resolution is, I will follow up with prospects regularly, and there he is there. Oh, really? You think you could meet sales goal? Tell me more about the last time you even got on the phone. Again, it's a real tendency, I think, certainly all of us, to send an email when we know we should pick up the phone. We really would just, have a coffee in hand and type with the other, but we really should pick up the phone. And again, there are different types of environment. There might be telephone quotas. You have to do X number a day. There might be just sales quotas, irrelevant in how many calls you make. You just have to do as many calls as you need to bring in the money, whatever it is. But ultimately, with a follow-up here, and again, particularly relevant now over the holiday season, whatever holiday it is, if it's Christmas or Hanukkah or Diwali, whatever it is, or really it's around Thanksgiving time, around Valentine's Day. Again, whatever reason, these are great opportunities and really great openings for a follow-up. It can be an opportunity to pick up the phone and call Mrs. Smith, who's been, coming in and sort of humming and hawing for the last 8 months about her husband who really should be here, or about, the kind of environment that really she should come in and say, hi, I wanted to say Merry Christmas. I wanted to say thinking of you. I want to see how your dad's doing or your husband or whatever it is. So again, A is the follow-up, and again, that's where the CRM comes in. There needs to be regular follow-up. Depends on the industry and the type of home you have. Might be every 3 months, might be every 4 months, might be every 8 weeks, whatever it is. But one is following up, and two, again, just as a bit of a trick here, and a bit of a tip, I would put it. Nobody likes to have followed up, because really, you're calling, hi, I wanted to call and follow up. Well, what are you calling to say? You're calling to say, have you decided to move in? Put some on the fence. Put some, back up against the wall. Another opportunity or another way of putting it might be, I want to call and see how you're doing, see how your dad's doing, see if, if you've gone on nice vacations. In other words, you're developing a rapport with these people, because, again, that's what it is. Because the sale, on one hand, it might, again, depending on your commission structure or the type of home, the type of community care and so on, you might be personally done with it once that person moves in. But of course, with this, what we were talking about earlier, with this increasing technological savviness of boomers and seniors, if they're not happy, and particularly we're talking about human beings here who are in these homes, if they're not happy, they're going to make it so you're not getting your prospects and you're not getting your quotas. And so, of course, it needs to be really an ongoing, even if it means, you come in and you see that, you see this person every day because they live there, you see their loved one there. There needs to be that ongoing relationship, and so that's why there really shouldn't be any bad blood there. There really shouldn't be any ill will or ill feelings that they have towards you because they feel that they've been hoodwinked or a bait and switch. You brought me in here and then it's something else. So again, it's that opportunity to follow up with prospects without making them feel like they're being followed up with. It makes them feel like you are developing a relationship, and ultimately, that's exactly what you're doing. You are developing a relationship with them. It's not simply about closing a sale. It's not simply about hitting that 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 phone calls every day that you're obligated to hit. It's about maintaining that relationship. So, and again, you call, you don't even necessarily have to ask, hey, just want to wish you a Merry Christmas, or particularly here's another, a strategy, perhaps depending on the type of care you offer, maybe not a bad idea in a couple days or in a few days early next week after Christmas. Again, retirementhomes.com, we always found that our website traffic spiked in January. And again, that's not a surprise. People spend time with grandpa or grandma, again, depending on the type of care, even if they don't necessarily need something like a CCRC, or nursing home, skilled nursing, or memory care. But even just to say, gee, I noticed that, grandma's, she's not doing as well as she used to, and so on. And so this is not necessarily a bad time to sort of jump into people's minds at that point. And they say, you know what? Let me come in again. Maybe it's not a bad idea for me to meet you again or talk with you again, because maybe there's something's changed, over the time when they spend a lot of time with their loved ones. Again, it's just good practice as well. Resolution 7, unfortunately, no pithy meme there, but Resolution 7, I will regularly increase my professional knowledge by attending webinars, reading books, etc. And then, of course, and/or, depending if you're a frontline, if you're management, and/or I will invest in training for my staff. Now, again, a common reply that we get, and I'm sure that you've heard as well, even just intuitively, you might think, well, why would I spend, if I'm a manager or sales manager, X number of thousands of dollars on training for my staff? They can always go elsewhere. And, of course, you may have heard this, the rejoinder, well, what if you don't spend that money and they stay? Right? It is in everybody's best interest for that, from a management perspective, to have staff trained, because they're better at their jobs. And even if they leave after 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is, good luck to them. But you know what? They've brought more value, and it's a lot better for an overall team, because, again, turnover, again, when they're more qualified, they can command more. And perhaps if it's able to, pay them more, because, again, turnover, nobody wants that. They're more likely to stay if they think that there's upward mobility there. So give them the opportunity to learn. Give them the opportunity to become more knowledgeable, because, again, when they're better at their jobs, you're better at your job. When we're talking about senior living professionals, whether you're in marketing or sales yourself, depending on, again, how cooperative management or your bosses might be, maybe you can spend an hour every week, every Friday afternoon when, maybe it's slower, or maybe Monday morning when maybe you just need a little bit of time to get in. Maybe you catch a webinar. Maybe you read something. Again, if you're not able to at work, consider doing it off, even though it's unpaid. Again, we'll get into in the next slides there. But what can really help you become better at what you do, whether it's webinars, whether it's books, whether it's SlideShare, you can go on there. And you can find, different slides and PowerPoints that are uploaded, different ways that you can really become knowledgeable. Again, the Internet can be an incredible tool if used, and can help us really become better at our jobs to learn that. So, again, consider definitely spending, if you're on the front line, spending, it doesn't have to be a lot of time, but a dedicated time every day or every week. Maybe it's 10 minutes a day even. 10 minutes a day to read something, your favorite blog, or whatever, that helps you understand more about your business. Resolution number 8 here. I will not be afraid to be blunt with a prospect. And again, that mean there, keep calm and ask for the sale. So what do I mean by that? You might say, well, you were just talking a few slides ago about consultative selling, asking them, what they need. But eventually, ultimately, there comes a point when sometimes the person's just analysis paralysis, or for whatever reason, they're just sitting there. I'm not ready. They can be 110, and they'll be not ready. So how do we break out of that? Again, there are a lot of ways to do that, a lot of different strategies and opportunities to work around that. But really, perhaps one of the most fundamental, let's say, again, it depends on the type of person. You have someone who's coming in, and she's, her and her husband or herself or whatever. Again, obviously, customize it for your particular, tailor it for what your needs are. But she says, I'm not ready. You might lean in. Again, this is where the relationship, the following up comes in handy, but it's not just comes in handy, it's essential. You lean and you say to them, listen, I think at this point, I think this is right for you. I think this is just the time you and I know, you really should be here. And again, if they trust you, if you have a rapport, if you have a relationship, that doesn't come off as sales pitch. It comes out if you've met the person for 10 minutes and they come in for a walk-in tour
and you're just firing off information. Oh, you should be here, absolutely. It's hollow. It rings hollow because it is. But understanding something like this, that ultimately you don't always have to do it. Sometimes it happens, if you follow the consultative sales process, works for itself. But sometimes in a bit of a sticky situation or situation where it's just you can't get out of that rut, ask for the sale. Ask the person, tell the person, you know what? I really think this is the right time to do it. I really think that this is the best decision for your loved one. And you know what? Depending if you've qualified that person, if it really is right for them, and again, you have to believe that. If you don't believe that, then you're not really doing anybody a favor. But 9 times out of 10, if you've done this consultative sales approach well, and you followed up with that person, you've built a rapport, and you've done the needs analysis, and you've done everything, and you tell them, I really think this is the best decision for you right now. I think you really should do this. They'll probably sit back, and they'll probably say, you know what? You're right. You're right. And again, particularly because we're dealing in senior living, there are a lot of emotions at play here. There's a lot of guilt, again, depending on, the type of care. If someone's putting their loved one, sometimes it's more than just about that needs analysis. Obviously you're selling to benefits, not features. It's not just about, hey, our building has this or our care has this. Great, but what are the features or what are the benefits that this person has? But sometimes that isn't enough. Sometimes that looks good on paper. You've never been in a situation where you look at something, you've done an analysis, and you say, you know what, this really looks good on paper, but I just can't get myself to do it, right? We were talking about following up. Sometimes we love to send an email. We know we should pick up the phone. We know we should call that person, but we just can't bear to do it. That's exactly what this situation is. When we know that we should do something and we still don't exactly, we have to understand that that's what our prospects are doing. Except they're doing it. They're not selling a widget. Worst case, even the biggest purchase, buying a home. Let's say it's the worst decision in the world. Okay, someone's still there. It's not them. It's still external to them. When we're talking about senior living community, this is where they are. So we're talking about something which is intensely personal here. And again, that's why there needs to be that sometimes that nudge, depending on, again, the type of care and so on in terms of tailoring it for your needs. But sometimes there's nothing wrong. In fact, it's the best thing to ask for the sale. And again, just what we talked about a little bit earlier, someone comes in the middle of a snowstorm and they say, they later on, the first thing they tell you, I'm not ready. Okay, understand why they came in that day. They're not ready, but they picked up the phone or they called at 11 o'clock at night and you got the voicemail the next day or whatever it was. Something about them is ready. And they may tell you they're not ready because they want you, you know what, lower your expectations, Mr. and Mrs. Salesperson. I'm not quite ready yet. But you know what? They may be ready. And it's important to sometimes tell them when they are. And again, just while we're on that point as well, it might be a financial issue. Someone might tell you, I can't afford it. Now, again, this is pretty dicey because some people just can't afford it. Some people, if they're living on a fixed income, they're living on, their total budget is $2,000 a month. They can't afford a $3,500. There's just, you can't take money from a place where there is no money. So some people simply can't. And that's where, again, the consultative sales approach. But sometimes it's not the case. If you're talking about someone who, sometimes Realtor.com in the United States or MLS here in Canada, is helpful. You understand, someone, what kind of home do they live in? Is there money there? Are they finding, where are they coming from? Sometimes understanding that can give you an understanding to say, you know what, I think this person does have the money. Look at when they came in the parking lot. Did they come in a brand new Lexus, or are they driving an older car? Again, there's only so much that can come from that, but you need to suss out a little bit, because sometimes someone who's coming in, you look, they give you their address, they live in a large home, they come in driving a Lexus, they tell you they don't have any money, and again, that's where that relationship, sometimes it's, that's incumbent on you to suss that information out, and eventually once you've developed that relationship with them, tell them that, you know what, I think this is just something you need to do, and perhaps they'll, they'll sit back and they say, you know what, I really should. So enough about that. We have resolution number 9 here. We're getting to the home stretch. I will step beyond my official job description if it means getting more move-ins. And of course, you have here a skeleton who's been waiting. He says, oh, just waiting on some leads. So again, that's really it's a passive approach. I'm sure we've all done it at some point. Maybe we rely on it more than we should. But we all know that's really not the best approach, and it's really shouldn't be a big part of it at all. We have to be thinking outside. Now, again, when we say I will step beyond my official job description, it doesn't mean that we're eliminating family, that life or that kind of home-work balance, nothing like that. It really just means trying to be a little bit creative. So, for example here, again, if you work at a larger organization, maybe a number of chains, maybe there's even a separate marketing sales department, so your role is just sales. You're not dealing with marketing. You're not in charge of putting sales materials together or advertisements or SEO or anything like that. Your role is very narrowly focused. It's just sales, let's say. So in that kind of a role, for example, again, obviously the caveat depends on a lot of different factors and where you are and things like that. But the question is, would it be a bad thing, for example, for you to get yourself known at the local hospital, to the discharge planning station, or to social workers in your area, different associations, really getting yourself out there? So when they know that, let's say there's a senior there who's fallen and broken their hip, or there's, a senior there, whoever it is, they can, and the social worker tells the senior, I just don't think it's safe for you to go back at home, back into your house with stairs and everything. And they say, maybe it's time for you to look at a retirement home. They could say, there's a great place, Cedar Woods by whatever, and they can keep you in mind. And so again, that's where it may not be your official job description, but it's not necessarily a bad thing to get your name out there. Again, maybe that is part of your job if you're wearing a marketing and sales hat, both at the same time. But again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just an illustrative example. Find new prospects. Don't just necessarily, again, depending on the your type of role and everything, don't just necessarily wait for them to come to you. So you can look at hospitals, you can look at associations, you can look at networking. Heck, one of the things you can even do, go to programs where you think there are likely to be programs for seniors. So it might be a day program. It might be a personal finance session. It might be, a health program at maybe the local community center. So again, trying to think a little bit creatively here. Even going to the New Year's party at the local Y, because that's the demographics there. It's mostly people in their mid-70s and so on. So again, trying to be a little bit creative here can really help you get top of mind with exactly the type of people. And again, this ties in really well to our first resolution, is knowing who your prospects are and who they should be. And again, for those asking, certainly can send out both the recording and the slides afterwards. So yeah, don't worry about feverishly writing everything down. I will send this out afterwards. But again, this is something, think a little bit creatively, think outside the box, think about not just how they can find you, but how you can go out and find them. And drum roll, please, of course, our final resolution for the next year. I will evaluate my 2014 performance and conduct a full and honest assessment of myself. So, and again, you have there, of course, a picture of some Lego men there. One of them says, "Are you too busy to improve?" No, thanks, we're too busy. Of course, I have a square what's the word, wheel. So, of course, sometimes improvement, we don't think we have the time for it. But sit down, and again, this isn't just a sort of a cliche, sit down and think about what you've done. No, this has to be systematized. This has to be formalized. You have to sit down with a pad and paper, even a computer, whatever it is, sit down what you did well in the last year, what you didn't do well in the last year, what decisions you need to do, what decisions you need to make to change that. Again, these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. So it's not simply saying, well, gee, what did I do well last year? Great. And what did I do not so well last year? But changing it. What do I need to do to change it? What do I need to do to move the bad category over to the good category? What do I need to do? How can I improve myself? How can I work better? And so on and so forth. So again, it's important to do that. And again, we're certainly able to send that out to everyone. That's it for the resolutions. We do have a few questions that have come in. One of them is, what's the difference in the consultative sales process between a large and small community? Again, it really all depends on what the parameters of your role are. If your role is one where you are exclusively sales, you don't do anything to do with marketing, all you deal with are the families or the seniors, again, themselves, then you need to work on the understanding that you have very little information to start with, and so that you need to really stick to that most fundamentally. If you're in an organization where there's a much larger, organization, you have a very narrow focus, you need to be, I think, more specific. You don't necessarily need to ask generally because you might already have the information, where they came from, what they're looking for, what their budget is. You might already have that. Perhaps the most pressing thing there is understanding the imminency of it. Trying to really, again, light that fire underneath someone. So again, in a larger operation where you have that information, even the second you see that person's name, the question is, how do I get this person to make the decision themselves? Perhaps in a smaller company or community where you're doing all the sales and marketing yourself, I think there it's much more fundamental that you know the information beforehand and Google, and you become familiar with as much as you can in terms of online marketing and sort of the different ways, and so you have a better and more comprehensive picture of that person as well. So hopefully that answers. Obviously, if it doesn't, please, my contact is there. And just before we continue with the questions as well, obviously my contact is there. Before Christmas only, we're giving away a 30-minute free marketing and sales consultation for you. We don't need to conduct it before Christmas, but just to let us know. So if you send me an email, Robert@Retirement Homes, before Christmas, we can book for sometime in the new year a free marketing and sales consult. Really, it's an evaluation of your home, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and and hopefully we can uncover some things and go from there. We have another question here about social media and understanding what the right platform is for different senior living communities and the type of care. And again, that's where it becomes so important. If you are, for example, a memory care facility, your social media efforts, who are they going to target, right? Like our first resolution, they're not going to target the seniors themselves. They're probably going to have to target the loved ones, the oldest daughter, but they're probably also going to target social workers at hospitals and nurses and discharge planning and things like that. So perhaps, having an understanding and using social media and Facebook and things like that as a platform to promote events and informational programs and so on. Again, speaking the language and understanding the jingo of who your target audience is, and that's why it's so important. That's why Facebook versus LinkedIn. LinkedIn could be a great opportunity. Again, if you're in assisted living or skilled nursing or memory care, could be a great opportunity to reach out to social workers at hospitals, Alzheimer's Association, whatever it is. That could be a great opportunity. Where Facebook, if you're more independent living, it might be posting pictures of an event or a program or outing, something like that. It could be contests. It could be different programs. Again, it's an opportunity about customizing. That's where, again, depending on your role, whether you're marketing, sales, just sales, whatever it is, about trying to understand most fundamental who your audience is and then communicating. It's not just the sales, but it's the marketing. What content are you putting on your website? What content are you putting in your sales collateral? Does it even look like the people who are living there? If you are a community that has a large, maybe you're in parts of California or New York, you have a large Asian population or Asian American, Canadian population at your home, does your sales collateral reflect that? Even if it's not technically that kind of a community or a lot of Spanish-speaking residents, even if technically you're not an official Spanish-speaking community or an official, does your material reflect that? Do your programs reflect? When I say programs, I don't just mean your programs for residents. I mean, do you have events about information nights for prospects at your home? You serve tea and coffee and cookies. How to do this, how to avoid this kind of problem living at home. Again, it's an opportunity to reach out to people, and that's where customization becomes so important. And really tailoring your message, really all the way from head office, depending on the type of role, all the way down to shaking the hand of the walk-in tour at your home. It really all becomes so fundamental to know who your target is and to target exactly who they are and really to sell to exactly what they need. Because if you're not selling to the person to what they need, then ultimately you're not necessarily going to make that sale. You're a lot less likely to do so. So again, that's it certainly for our webinar today. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us. We are back next month, so we'll be able to send out this recording and the slides to everyone who's interested. So all the best to everyone. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and have a Happy New Year, and we will connect in the new year. All the best. Take care. Bye.